In mid-January 2026, United States President Donald Trump made a strong public statement. He said it was time for new leadership in Iran. This statement was very important because it came after many weeks of huge protests across Iran. These protests had grown into the biggest problem the country had seen in many years. It was an unprecedented moment for a U.S. president to speak in such a direct way about another nation's leaders. The first protests started in late December 2025. People went to the streets because Iran's economy was failing badly. The national money, called the rial, had lost a lot of its value. Prices for basic food items were much higher than before. What began as small protests quickly spread. Millions of Iranians were now asking for big political changes, not just better prices. The government responded to these protests with a harsh crackdown. Many people were hurt and many were killed. The exact number of people who died is very unclear. Some reports from human rights groups suggested hundreds of deaths. However, other reports, even from sources inside Iran, said the number could be as high as 12,000, 20,000, or even 30,000 people. This wide range of numbers made the situation even more frightening and uncertain. Reports spoke of security forces using heavy guns and hospitals being overwhelmed with injured people. President Trump's words showed how serious the situation was. His call for new leadership from the White House made clear that a superpower was watching and speaking about Iran's future. The Iranian people were crying out for a different life, ready to face danger in the streets. But now, a foreign leader's words added another layer of tension to their fight. This left many questions. How could a nation's economy collapse so completely? What pushed millions of people to stand against bullets and fight for a chance at a different future? The spark. Iran faced very bad economic times. The money, called the rial, became almost worthless. In late December, $1 was worth more than 1,400,000 rials. Just 1 year before, it was about 700,000 rials. This huge drop made everything much more expensive for ordinary people. Life became hard. Food prices went up by 72% compared to the year before. Families struggled to buy basic things. Iran had also fought a short war with Israel in June 2025. This conflict caused damage to cities and made the economy even weaker. In September 2025, the United Nations put sanctions on Iran again. These sanctions were about Iran's nuclear program. They stopped many countries from doing business with Iran. This made it very difficult for Iran to sell its oil and get money, hurting the country's economy even more. The government then made new rules in December. They changed how fuel was sold, introducing a new subsidy system. They also stopped good exchange rates for most things bought from other countries. These changes were the last straw for many people. They made prices rise quickly and hurt businesses. People felt desperate and angry. Their money had lost its value, and they could not afford food or fuel. The government's actions made their lives worse every day. The anger grew, like water about to boil over. With the economy in ruins and the people's anger boiling over, the government was faced with a choice: listen or fight. What path did they choose, and what was the immediate, terrifying cost?
3. A sea of blood. The protests in Iran quickly turned into a very bloody crisis. The government reacted with extreme force. Reports about how many people died varied greatly, showing how difficult it was to get clear information. One group, Iran Human Rights, stated that over 3,400 protesters were killed by January 14th. The human rights activists' news agency confirmed more than 3,000 deaths, mostly protesters. However, other sources presented much higher figures. Iran International, after a detailed investigation using government and eyewitness accounts, said that at least 12,000 civilians had died. CBS News, citing activist groups inside Iran, even reported that the death toll could reach 20,000.
If these higher numbers were true, this crackdown became one of the deadliest events in modern Iranian history, far exceeding past protests from 2019 or 2022. Amnesty International documented widespread unlawful killings. Verified videos and eyewitness stories showed security forces using live ammunition, heavy machine guns, and other lethal weapons against largely peaceful demonstrators. A shocking sight was a temporary morgue set up in Khaherazak near Tehran, where more than 200 distinct body bags were seen. Hospitals were completely overwhelmed. In Karaj, a medical worker saw 87 dead bodies brought into Soleimani Hospital in just one night. Parsian Hospital treated over 400 injured people. There were even terrible reports of security forces finishing off wounded individuals on the streets and inside medical facilities. The use of heavy DSHK machine guns against protesters in places like Karaj painted a grim picture of the violence. President Donald Trump publicly criticized Iran's leadership, saying they were killing people by the thousands to keep power. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, later acknowledged that thousands of Iranians had been killed. However, he put the blame on President Trump for encouraging the protesters with promises of help. With so many people dead or dying, the streets of Iran were stained with sorrow and blood. This massive loss of life created a horrifying situation. A critical question then arose. How would the Iranian regime try to hide a massacre of this huge size from the rest of the world? 4. The digital dark. To hide what was happening, the Iranian government made the country go dark. They shut down almost all internet access. This was like building an invisible wall, a digital iron curtain, so no one could see the crackdown. This internet blackout started on January 8. For more than 1 week, only about 1% of the usual internet connection was working. This shutdown happened right after the exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi asked people to protest on January 8 and 9. Shireen Ebadi, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, gave a warning on January 9. She said that a big massacre might happen under the cover of this internet blackout. She had heard reports of hundreds of injured people at just one hospital in Tehran. The internet shutdown made daily life very difficult for millions. People could not do digital banking. Hospitals, pharmacies, and other important services struggled to work. It was hard to send news or connect with the outside world. Some people tried using satellite internet like Starlink, but this was dangerous. Researchers warned that the government could find these connections. There were reports of security forces searching homes for satellite equipment. This digital darkness stopped the world from seeing the violence. It made people inside Iran feel very alone and unsure about the future. But while Iran was cut off from the world, A powerful voice from across the ocean began to speak louder than ever before. This was President Donald Trump. His words would soon reach everyone. Were his words a promise to help, or did they mean a dangerous war was coming? 5. The President's words. President Donald Trump watched the difficult situation in Iran very closely. His public statements became much stronger as the nationwide protests grew. On January 2nd, in 2026, he sent a clear warning to Iran. He said that if Iran violently harmed peaceful protesters, the United States of America would come to help them. He plainly stated, "We are locked and loaded and ready to go." This was a powerful message, suggesting that America might use its military to support the Iranian people facing government violence. Days later, on January 13th, President Trump sent a direct message to the Iranian protesters themselves. He posted a public statement encouraging them with these words, "Iranian patriots, keep protesting. Take over your institutions." He also promised them that help is on its way. These words were clearly meant to give courage and hope to those Iranians fighting for major changes in their country. However, President Trump's way of speaking sometimes seemed to change. On one Friday, he sounded different. He said he greatly respected that over 800 scheduled hangings in Iran have been canceled by the leadership of Iran. But Iranian officials quickly said this was not true. They denied that such a large number of hangings were ever planned or stopped. This caused confusion for many people trying to understand the real situation. Beyond just words, the Trump administration also started taking real, practical steps. News reports from that time suggested that the Pentagon had shown President Trump different plans for possible military attacks. These plans included important facilities used in Iran's nuclear program and its missile sites. At the same time, a large U.S. Navy carrier strike group, led by the USS Abraham Lincoln, was moved closer towards the Middle East. This showed that military action was a very serious possibility, and not just talk. President Trump also added economic pressure to his threats. On January 13th, he announced a new 25% tax, or tariff. This tariff would be placed on any country in the world that continued doing business with Iran. This was another way to try and force Iran's government to change its actions. Finally, on January 17th, President Trump made his most direct statement yet. He said it was time to look for new leadership in Iran. He openly criticized Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Trump said Khamenei was guilty of the complete destruction of the country and the use of violence at levels never seen before. President Trump was making it very clear that America might intervene. But he did not say who should be Iran's new leader. He did not offer any clear alternative vision for Iran's future. Was there anyone who could present a plan for a new Iran? Soon, an exiled prince, a son of Iran's last king, was about to step onto the world stage with his own ideas. 6. The Lion and the Sun. Reza Pahlavi was the son of Iran's last king, the Shah. He was 65 years old and had lived outside Iran in the United States for over 40 years. Now he wanted to lead Iran again, but in a new way. He saw himself as a leader who could help Iran change after the protests.
Pahlavi strongly supported the people protesting in Iran. He called for big protests on January 8 and 9. He often spoke on American television, asking the President Donald Trump administration to help. Pahlavi said about 12,000 people had died. He believed the current government would fall, but that outside help would speed it up. He had a clear plan for a new Iran. He wanted to create Cyrus Accords to make Iran friends with Israel and other Middle Eastern countries again. His plan also included letting the people vote on Iran's future government system. He said a new government would keep public workers who were not bad. However, President Trump was not ready to fully support Pahlavi. Trump said Pahlavi seemed very nice. Yet he added, "I don't know how he'd play within his own country." Trump wondered if Iranians would accept Pahlavi as their leader.
This showed Trump was not sure about backing Pahlavi completely. Some people in Iran chanted Pahlavi's name during protests, but his actual support inside Iran was hard to know. Many older Iranians remembered the Shah's rule, which had its own problems. They were not sure they wanted a king again. A past example was Iraq, where a leader from exile did not easily bring stable government. Despite Trump's public doubts, secret high-level talks took place. A special envoy from the White House, Steve Witkoff, met with Pahlavi on the weekend of January 11 and 12. This was the first important meeting between the Trump administration and the Iranian opposition figure. The U.S. president was hesitant to fully support a potential new king for Iran. So, how would other world powers react to the growing chaos and the threat of an American-led war in the Middle East? 7. A world divided. The world watched Iran, but nations had different ideas about what to do. European leaders spoke strongly. The European Union said Iran's actions were too harsh and not right. They asked Iran to let people protest peacefully. The United Nations also asked for calm. Secretary General Antonio Guterres was sad about the many deaths. He called on authorities to let people speak freely and gather without violence. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, asked Iran to stop all violence and turn the internet back on. But not all countries agreed.
Russia and China did not want other countries to get involved in Iran's problems. Russia said that threats from Washington about military strikes were wrong. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi said his country did not like it when others tried to force their will on another nation. These reactions showed how the world was divided. Some countries worried about human rights, while others worried more about outside interference. Because of the danger, some Western countries acted. The United Kingdom closed its embassy in Tehran and brought its staff home. Other European nations like Italy and Spain told their people to leave Iran. They also took steps to protect their soldiers in the Middle East. Iran, for its part, criticized President Donald Trump. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei blamed Trump for the deaths. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said reports of many deaths were false. Iran also sent a letter to the UN saying Trump's words broke international law. The crisis in Iran was not just one country's problem. It showed big differences between world powers. Some countries wanted to help people and protect human rights. Others wanted to keep their power and stop others from interfering. This left Iran in a very hard place. The country was suffering, its internet was dark, and its future was unclear. The world watched, but no one could agree on the best way forward. What would happen to Iran, caught between its own problems and a divided world? 8.
The crossroads. Iran is in a very difficult situation. Protests show many people are unhappy. The economy is bad, and the government has used strong force. This chapter looks at what might happen next. There are a few main paths Iran could take, each with big risks. One path is that the current government stays in power. This means they continue to stop protests with force. The police and army are loyal to the leaders. The internet might be cut off again. Many protesters could be arrested. If this happens, the government keeps control, but people's anger will remain. The country would be very tense. Another path is that everyone starts to talk. The government and protesters might find a way to stop fighting. Or Iran and the United States could negotiate. This might lead to economic improvements or small political changes. But both sides need to compromise, which is hard now due to strong feelings. A third path is the government falling. If protests grow much stronger, or if the army stops supporting the leaders, the government could collapse. This brings questions. Who would lead Iran then? Would it be peaceful, or would there be more chaos? This future is very uncertain. There is also the chance of outside military action. President Donald Trump has warned the United States might use military force. Israel could also attack Iran. These could be targeted strikes. But military involvement is very dangerous. It could start a bigger war. Iran might fight back. This could make things much worse for everyone. Finally, a likely path for some time is continued problems. Protests might happen sometimes, but not enough to change the government. The economy would stay weak. The government would keep control by force, but not solve the deep problems. This means a country always on the edge, with no clear end. Iran is truly at a crossroads. The people hope for a better future. The government uses strong methods. President Trump's words add tension. The world watches, but countries disagree. Every choice now is full of danger. For Iranians, will their fight bring change or more sadness? Decisions by leaders in Washington, Tehran, and other capitals will shape the Middle East for many years. What path do you think Iran will take, and why?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.